and uprisings over an anti-Islam film are reaching a boiling point. Today, the unrest spread from the Middle East and North Africa to Australia, and the terror threat in some countries is now at a critical level. Al-Qaeda is urging protesters to continue the violence and set fires to all U.S. embassies. Now, many Americans in Sudan and Tunisia are being told by our government to get out of those countries. ABC's Chuck Sievertson is learning more now about the travel warning for Americans.
Tunisian police and military now guard the U.S. Embassy compound and school damaged by angry protesters. The State Department has ordered all non-essential government workers and family members to leave Tunisia and the Sudan. The U.S. also issued travel warnings for Americans in those two countries because of the threat of more violence. In Pakistan, protesters stomped on the U.S. flag as the wave of anger continued to spread, even down under.
They've insulted our Prophet Muhammad. America has insulted our Prophet Muhammad.
The Taliban released this video, the aftermath of a revenge attack on a base in Afghanistan. 2 U.S. Marines were killed, several others wounded, and extensive property damage, including 6 very expensive U.S. Harrier jets. Security was beefed up in Paris as protesters gathered outside the U.S. Embassy there. And in Benghazi, Libyan teams began investigating the U.S. consulate, where Ambassador Chris Stevens and 3 other Americans were killed on the anniversary of the September 11th attacks. An American team is en route to conduct its own investigation of the deadly assault. The man believed to be behind the controversial film that fueled the anti-American outrage, Nakula Baseli Nakula, left his California home, was questioned by probation officers, and released. Federal officials are investigating his activities. Chuck Sievertson, ABC News, New York.
Now, you just heard about that Southern California filmmaker linked to the anti-Islamic movie, and he says he's not going to return to his home. Nakula Basli Nakula was interviewed for about a half an hour by federal probation officers at a Los Angeles sheriff's station, and as you heard, deputies dropped him off at an undisclosed location. Federal officials are investigating him, and he's been convicted of financial crimes, and they've investigated whether he's violated the terms of his 5-year probation. The Muslim community here in Charlotte is condemning the violence happening around the world. Tonight, close to 100 people turned out for an interfaith discussion, and local Muslims spoke to Eyewitness News reporter Jeff Smith about the message that they want to share.
Muslim leaders told me they were impressed by tonight's turnout. Dozens of people attended this event, even though it was hastily organized just within the last 48 hours. The Muslim American Society invited leaders from all faiths to join them tonight for a special dinner and discussion about the violence raging in the Middle East.
You couple ignorance and emotion together, and it's just a recipe for disaster.
Thousands have protested a recent anti-Islam film ridiculing Prophet Muhammad.
And just because you have the right to do something, it doesn't mean that it's the right thing to do.
Local clerics told me they don't support the film, but they're opposed to the violent demonstrations in Egypt, Libya, and elsewhere.
To say all of this is immoral, ignorance, injustice.
Imam John Eggerer says he's devastated by the deaths of 4 American diplomats, including the U.S. ambassador to Libya.
What people are doing in the Middle East is despisable to us. It's despicable.
Muslims told me there's a growing fear that continued unrest in the Middle East could result in acts of vandalism here locally. That's why tonight they wanted to spread a message of peace and tolerance. Jabril Huff told me he's contacted CMPD this week and asked for increased patrols around local mosques for fear of vandalism and attacks. In East Charlotte, Jeff Smith, Channel 9, Eyewitness News.
The unrest in the Middle East has become the focus for the presidential candidates. Today, during his weekly address, President Obama promised justice for those who killed the U.S. ambassador to Libya, Chris Stevens, and 3 other Americans at the consulate.
There is